Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Reppin. Thank you so much for being here. I've got a great show for you today. All of the regular listeners of this podcast, you're going to see that I'm kicking off the show in a new way. There's a new track, which I hope you're going to like, and you're going to meet the man who helped me put that together, DJ Ace, the Cut Lieutenant. He's going to be guesting shortly. Today, I am super excited to have this amazingly talented martial artist, producer, and actor, Osric Chau here. You know Osric as Kevin Tran from Supernatural. He was also in Dirks Gently, Holistic Detective Agency. Osric was also Ryan Choi in the TV show Set in the Arrowverse. And he was in Netflix's monster hit, Avatar: The Last Airbender. Osric was also a guest on my podcast back in 2020, where he made an impact on me personally. So much so that I had to have him back here and tell him on this episode what he has done for me. Osric has two new projects. One is called Worth the Wait, and the other is called Holidays, which he's going to give us the inside scoop. And he's got some really amazing insights to share as well. So please say hello to Osric Chau.
Was there a moment for you where you were on my end and someone had actually helped you understand and also appreciate your culture?
Oh.
Rough and rugged.
Represent NY, hold it down for my peeps. New York, New York. We rep the hardest. Hardcore. Nobody harder. Let them know. That's the way we rock it. Tell me what you got.
It is good to see you. How are you?
It's nice to be back. I like your new setup. It's nice with like the light and the backdrop.
Thank you. It's actually just hiding my New York City apartment as much as possible, trying to make this somewhat professional.
It's very professional.
But you look good.
Thank you. I've been well. I've been traveling a lot.
Yes.
It's been a while. I haven't traveled like this since pre-COVID times. So it almost feels like, oh, we're back at it now, and I'm readjusting to life out of my backpack.
Yeah, but you've had a great time, and we have been talking a little bit offline. I want to follow in your footsteps and do some more traveling too, but we've gotten to know each other a little bit. We actually didn't know each other when you first came on the show, and ironically enough, we share some mutual friends. But I know you've been traveling, you've been really busy, so I really do appreciate your making time. There have been things that I've wanted to say, and I have been talking a lot about, that was connected to you and also what we discussed on your episode when you guested, that I realized I never actually said to you. So I sort of wanted to have this conversation because I really am a big believer in making sure that I always voice my thoughts or how important someone is or something is to that person. You shared a lot of your personal experiences about like when you were growing up, you didn't see anyone that looked like either of us. And we both kind of wanted to be white. We didn't like the way we looked. We didn't understand it. Actually, let me rephrase that. You understood it a lot better than I did. What I really wanted to say to you is personally, you were one of the first, probably major moments where you opened the door to make me realize what the lack of representation did to me. And it was something that I never was able to shape until you started to talk. And that was actually the first time that I had ever said out loud in my life, and certainly publicly, that I had wanted a nose job because I wasn't happy with my nose. And I am kind of a private person. And you're sharing your stories and your perspectives and insights and what you learned and the challenges and how you were able to gain perspective, open the doors for me to understand my own experiences better. That was something that I did not realize that was going to happen when I started this podcast. But I've also realized how important that was So I wanted to say thank you because I'm continuing to understand and learn, but that really started to happen when you came on the show. So thank you.
Wow. Oh, thank you for sharing. No, that's really cool. I think for me, I had a similar moment, and a lot of it was just in my own frustrations. I do think about my own thoughts a lot. Like, why do I like this thing? Why do I not like this thing? I have a lot of curiosity in terms of why certain things are the way they are in my head. And I think that was one of them, and part of it comes down to like me being stubborn. I'm like, well, instead of me changing, why can't I change the world around me? Which is a lot more work, but I think something like this, it makes sense.
Yeah, it was kind of huge. I mean, you've obviously did a lot more work at that point, both when this was actually happening and also when we spoke, because I don't know that I had the language to put it together, certainly not as succinctly. But when you were breaking it all down, it really helped me personally. And that has sort of really opened the door to make me go, oh, like, what else am I learning? How else has that impacted me back then? And how have I carried it through my life? And all these different nuanced layers. And it's been very powerful. And I didn't know if you realized, the work or the stubbornness that character trait that you have sort of helped you, or if you actually also realized what you're doing with your platform. And I sort of really wanted to connect those dots for you as well. You doing your thing and being the person that you are certainly helped me.
Part of the benefits of having a platform is knowing, okay, it does have an effect. And I think very early on, I had an idea, but you don't really know. You get success and you think, you're doing okay, but you don't really know. I mean, I certainly never felt like a celebrity, or I don't feel like a famous person in my own circle of people. I'm just another guy. When I walk through the streets, I'm not getting bombarded. Like, I don't feel like the person that people tell me I am sometimes. Right. And I'm like, okay, in certain circles, yeah, I'm a little bit popular. But for the most part, I don't feel like I have that influence. And it's not until I go to like an Asian filmmakers gathering. There was a moment where I was looking to, the Daniel Day Kims, the Randall Parks, waiting for them to like do their next thing.
Right.
And then, I have a bunch of people come up to me and I realize that they're looking at me to do the thing too. I'm like, oh man, we're all, I guess I'm somewhere if I have like a whole generation of people looking at me now. I'm old enough. So we all have an influence and an impact. And I think, yeah, for me to inspire others, that's paying it forward to the people who have inspired me.
That's awesome. I think it's also more difficult though, because you didn't necessarily have someone like you when you were growing up, right? So the work you did was actually more on you than it was out external influences. And I think that needs to be recognized as well. I think one of the many things is, and this also happened with another conversation with actually a Canadian comedian, Julie Kim, who made me realize, and again, very eloquently said, representation isn't just about informing other people about the lack of representation and why it's important, but it also helps us gain insight and a better understanding on who we are and what we could be. And I thought that was brilliant. When you're in it, you don't know you're in it. It's sort of like sleepwalking. You don't know you're doing it. It's like being in the Matrix, right?
Yeah.
You were able to kind of step out and be able to look at things and understand and question. Like, there was something you said once. We were talking about the lack of representation, and you're like, even in cartoons, in Dragon Ball, Super Saiyan was like a Westerner. We didn't even have that. So how are you able to kind of, quote unquote, step out of the matrix a little bit and look at the information that was coming at you? Because I wasn't able to kind of step out of it when I was a kid.
I think part of it is I didn't analyze it. I was kind of a stupid kid. I didn't think. And I would consider this one of the anomalies that helped me move forward, is that I was never afraid to be the first to do something. I didn't need for a mass adoption happen to be like, oh, it's safe now. In fact, I would say that I fight against like norm culture. I'm like, okay, well, like, yeah, that's been done, whatever, right? I
Okay.
will be the one that says, why can't we do that? That hasn't happened. So, like, why can't I be the first? Why can't you be the first? I have sensibilities that push me to, the road that hasn't been traveled before, just out of spite and stubbornness, right? But at the same time, also because I never calculated, I never like took all the information. I'm like, okay, yeah, this is a high percentage shot here. Like, no, I just went for it because I didn't question these things back then. There are certain times where I'm like, man, if I were even a little bit smarter back then, I don't know if I would have done all this stuff, right? Because like,
Okay.
there's that quote where like, genius just seems idiotic till it works out.
Okay.
And I'm like, okay, I definitely lucked out because I didn't have anything figured out. But I also have a single tattoo here. It's a little
Oh,
arrow.
wait, what is that?
It's just a little arrow that
Okay.
I got after my first movie in the Philippines. It's a reminder for me to take that leap of faith. And the reason why I got it after the Philippines is because this movie, the first movie I ever produced, was a fluke. We had no plan. We had no experience on the production side of things. We just bought one-way flights to the Philippines with a script and a couple of friends. We ended up raising the money there, putting it all together in a matter of months. But the idea was like, here's a one-way flight to a country none of us have been, and we're not going to come back until we have a movie, right? And there was a thought at the end there. I'm like, why was it so scary? Why is the idea of a one-way flight so scary that you don't have plans to come back to the spot that you're starting? I mean, the whole intention of this endeavor was that we don't want to be where we're at. So why is the idea of not being able to come back to this exact same spot of safety so scary? And that was when I'm like, oh, you know what? The scariest thing is that if nothing changes. So a one-way flight is actually the thing that will take me away from this safe harbor. And while that one-way flight might take me back here, it might take me to somewhere else. It might take me to Thailand. It might take me back to China. Who knows? That unknown is so scary, but that unknown at that time was the only thing I really needed. And it was just one of those thoughts where I'm like, why am I so scared? So we all got tattoos after, and this was a tattoo that just reminded me to take those scary leaps of faith because, they're presented to me for a reason.
That's incredible. But also, let me just, on a practical note, like, do you ever think like, holy shit, there's a ton of money involved. There are things riding on it. I agree about taking risks, but I think I think out of the two of us, it's very safe to say you're definitely the more fearless one out of the two of us.
I did have allies, right? It wasn't just me. I was the first one to buy a ticket, and
Okay.
and it was one of those things where everyone's like, are we really doing this? But I think reading the room, we were all kind of in that spot of like frustration and like, we got to do something for ourselves. Worst case scenario, go to the Philippines for the first time and you have a great time.
Okay, so that's a great example, but that's huge, high risk. This also reminds
But
me
what
of
is
when
the
you
risk, right? What is the actual risk?
spending all this money, losing all your time, and it not going anywhere.
Maybe, but I would argue that if you're going to a new country trying to do this thing, and like that means we're trying to talk to production companies, we're trying to talk to producers, we're trying to learn a new language of business. Right. I'd say even that process, had we not gone to the finish line, we would have been richer for that experience.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, that's true. That's true, but it's a daunting thing.
It is daunting.
Just how big it is. And I think this harkens back to what you told me during our first conversation, which is I think you just like, in short, just picked up and like moved to China and didn't speak any Chinese. You really have this very bold, daring characteristic trait. It's a sense of just be open and willing to take the risk, and you being fearless to take that leap. You've obviously learned this certainly over and over again, and you've done it in the Philippines. But how have you applied this one sort of lesson to other areas of your life?
So I would say that there are calculations that are involved, but I think even back then, like you have a guesstimate of the situation. I don't know if I said this in our first session, but part of my belief in these high risk things is I guess it's my faith in my future self, right? Like humans, we adapt. And if I'm not ready for something, I have faith that I will figure it out by the time I need to. Right?
Okay.
So the analogy I always use is like, if I get cold, I will know that I will put on a jacket or a blanket. I'm going to find a way to stay warm. And I think that applies to anything. I go to China. I didn't speak the language, but I wanted to communicate. They're Chinese.
Figure it out.
Figure
Make
it
it work.
Yeah.
Yeah. I will also add this, though. You are a very capable person and smart. I know a lot of people that they can't find their way out of a paper bag. And that's not on the lack of trying, but that's a whole nother offline conversation. From all of your travels and work and this undeniable and relentless ability to leap almost without looking. I mean, there is probably some calculations that's involved, but you basically do it. You've been able to gain a lot of different vantage points and perspectives. As you've gone along, how has that continue to help you? And I'm going to go with this analogy still, stay out of the matrix, be able to see all these external messages that are giving you information and opinions or social biases or whatever else you want to call it, to be able to say, like, that's not right. Why is it like this? This is what I'm going to do. And I think the second part of this question is a lot of people can, if they are able to recognize it and step out, they're not able to lead and to be a pioneer.
Yeah.
You're able to do that. Where does that come from?
I think having those different perspectives is huge. And I'll give you one very obvious example. Here in North America, we're the minority. You go to Asia, I'm part of the majority all of a sudden, right? At least on face value. But
yes,
if you start talking to people, I'm a foreigner again, right? I look like them, but culturally very, very different. So I think part of that perspective is like, okay, here, we all have a chip on our shoulder. We all have certain talking points that we go to. We have certain complaints that we go to in terms of like, if only this, if only that. And in Asia, it's the same thing, right? And so there was a time when I'm like, okay, well, I belong nowhere and I'm a minority everywhere. And therefore, I'm always going to be at a disadvantage. And then the other thought, and I know people that can be in both camps, or one that feels like they're always in one side where like nothing ever works out in their favor. And then I have people that everything only works out in their favor and they're in the same spot. They're between two cultures, and one, like some people find a way to use it to their advantage and some people find a way to not. So when I recognize that, I'm like, okay, I want to be one of those people that always has an advantage, whatever the case. I don't know what that means. I just know that I don't want to be a person that's like, oh, I'm too Asian for this and I'm too Western for that, right? I want to be just enough of everything for everyone where it's an advantage, right? And so I think shifting that mindset of like, okay, whatever it is, I'm always going to spin it in that way. I think changing it in your mind first is a huge thing because it kind of helps dictate what you say, how you comport yourself. I think part of it was like, okay, I don't ever want to feel like I'm at a disadvantage, meaning, like, hey, please hire me because look how hard the road I had to take was, blah, 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 blah. Like, no, okay, I'm competing against the world now, regardless of where they're from, what kind of advantages they have. I'm now a world person. I have the advantages of all of these cultures. And if you're working with me, I will bring that to the table, even if I don't, like I feel like I do. And I have an understanding of this side that you do not. And, just coming in with that kind of confidence, that experience of being there for a couple of months, which, isn't really that much. But I think having that mindset all of a sudden, it just changes something where like, okay, I'll get hired because I'm the best, most unique person for this job. That's it. And I think it
Okay.
just started making me compete against everyone. And this is like a topic on DEI. Like, while I do believe that is important, I also believe that in order for us to really get out of it, we have to overcome the lack of opportunities. And for me, it's like, well, I just got to get better. I have to know more. I have to do more. And I just
Okay.
have to train so much harder than all these people that have had all those legs up over me. And regardless of what background they are, where they come from, I'm going to be competing against the world anyways. So I just have to figure out, okay, the industry looks like this. I need to either fight my way in or carve a new piece out for myself
Right.
and,
Right.
my community. And so I think once I had that idea, then it wasn't a matter of succeeding or failing. It's just like, okay, well, it's going to happen. It's just how long will it take me to put all those pieces together? Because I'm not relying on anyone else anymore. I know what people expect, regardless of background and experience. I just have to get there.
I agree with everything that you're saying, but here's where I will challenge you because this is where I see the rub. You can change your perspective and that will affect how you behave or how you communicate or how you present or how you navigate a specific situation that can say to people, I am worldly, I am competing with everybody. The rub then becomes is if that person is still imposing this label or this very limited lens on you. And that those two can rub, especially if that person is in charge of hiring you or me or whatever.
Yeah, well, what you're describing is an obstacle.
Yes,
That's it.
correct.
I work in an industry of storytellers. You grow up watching shonen animes. Like, what are we? We all have main character syndrome, and our lives are very similar. We have a goal. We come across these obstacles that's like, oh, you can't do the thing that you intended to do. And if we just accepted that, the story would end. So I, with main character syndrome, do not accept it. I'm like, okay, sure. I will accept that I cannot do it this way, but I'm going to come up with my plan B. I'm going to train in another way. I'm going to find a different path. And if that doesn't work, that's another obstacle to overcome. And it is a series of, sure, I can't do it that way, but I'm going to do it some other way. And I'm pretty sure I said this on the first podcast. It's everyone else's job to tell you no, right? But the only no that will actually stop you from doing anything is the one you tell yourself.
You did not say that, and I'm really glad you said it now.
Okay.
That's amazing.
Well, I will be in charge of trying to do the things for myself. Everyone else will stop me, right? But my legs will still move as long as my mind tells me to move them, right? So I will allow all of this, but I will also disregard it.
That's awesome. When did you learn that, like, in your life? Do you remember a situation where you learned it?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. I do watch a lot of like those motivational, inspirational stuff. Like, so I surround my world with positive thinking and people, content, media that kind of reinforces that idea, right?
That's awesome.
I really believe in the power of thought. You can kind of think of it as a meditation, as a mental training, because I want to shape my brain to do the things that I want my body to do.
That's actually very powerful, but it's a discipline too. I think that needs to be developed and practiced.
Yeah.
Because, someone, it goes to that cheesy saying, you could lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. Like, you can hear it, you can intellectually understand it, but to practice it is like a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, well, I look at it like training. And so I can point to a moment in my early 20s, where I was a full-time martial artist. All I was doing was training. And then I got injured one time. I had a lot of time to reflect. And there was a moment where I finally understood what all those 30-year-olds were complaining about their backs and all that. And I'm like, okay, like right now, all I have is my physical prowess. And at some point that's going to fade. Then what am I? Right? If I look at all of the previous athletes before me and I track some of their careers, some of them have done well, some of them could not. And so at a certain point, I'm like, okay, I can only train my body for so long before it'll start breaking down. I have to start training my mind, and what that meant at the time, I had no idea. But I think having that thought allowed me to kind of gravitate towards those things that kind of called out to me in that way.
We talked a lot about lack of representation, and certainly that is still something that we need to kind of deal with for some reason. Well, for many reasons. That's a whole nother 10-part series. But I just said to you that I'm a late bloomer in this regard of my intellectual understanding of what the lack of representation has done. And again, you were definitely one of the first that opened that door for me. Because I think up until that point, was just doing the podcast for fun and also to try to create a space where you can have an actual conversation and humanize people, not realizing what it would actually give back to me. Was there a moment for you where you were on my end and someone had actually helped you understand and also appreciate your culture?
Oh, probably. I mean, I would say most definitely, but I think I meet so many people that these moments kind of like
Right.
flick by, and then I'll make a mental note of these things.
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely. I think growing up in the way that we did, and traveling the world, especially now that like K-pop is massive, like
I know.
there's like
Is that
this
crazy?
surge of like Asian things that are cool. All of a sudden you come across people that are like, oh my god, and I just love everything about your culture and your food, and it's one of those things like, are you I've never heard that before, but that's really nice.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I'm completely in shock that K-pop is a big thing, because back in the day, like, what? You couldn't see someone like us ever, and now it's like it's like Blackpink and BTS. Tickets are like $900 for floor seats, and I'm like, that's insane.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It is awesome, but like, is there someone that you look to that still open those doors for you, or do you feel like you've gotten a pretty good handle on things and you're continuing to push forward?
I mean, I do feel like I have a good handle on things, but at the same time, like I seek inspiration and guidance and lessons from everyone, including people that I mentor, including people that, are not at all related in the industry or doing completely different jobs. Inspiration and lessons come from everyone. Even my nephew, like he's running around like an idiot most of the time, but like there are moments where he says something that's just like, oh, like it's so nice to have that perspective.
Yes.
One of my earliest roles, I played a Tibetan monk, and I had a red string around my neck that I wore for like a decade until it accidentally got cut off. But that string has a single knot, and the thing I learned about these monks is like when they go into the monastery, they tie a little knot on a red string as a reminder that they will always be a student. Like no matter if they become the Dalai Lama or whoever, like they approach everything with an open heart and an open mind, because that's the only way to grow.
That is awesome. I actually subscribe to that same school, not in terms of the monk thing, but just sort of mentally. And I think these conversations with you and other people have really helped in so many ways. Like it's just really opened the doors, which brings me to 2 projects that you're working on right now. First of all, congratulations on both of them. Tell me a little bit about this first show called Worth the Wait, which has an all-star cast. First of all, it's the first Asian American original film on Tubi, which is amazing. The cast has Ross Butler from Riverdale. It has you. You've done Netflix's Avatar. You were on Supernatural. You've done like so many things.
You've got Andrew Koji from Warrior.
You've got Lana Condor, To All the Boys That I've Loved. This is a gorgeous modern cast. Tell me a little bit about the premise of the show, what it was like doing it, and what was that like? Because it's sort of like the K-pop thing. Osric, this would have been insane if we had this when we were growing up.
Yeah, I mean, it was really cool. There have been a couple of all Asian projects, and I've always wanted to be part of one of them. Usually, I'm like the token Asian guy on the show, so this was really nice to just kind of be a part of. And the filming process was super fun. We shot in Vancouver. Go to like the night markets on the weekends. Like it was a really good group of people. It's one of those unicorn projects that come every like decade that everything just works out like too well, and you're like wondering like when's the shoe gonna drop, and and it didn't. It was such a nice project to be a part of. But it's an anthology series showcasing like 4 different types of relationships in different age groups, loosely based off of the lives of our producers who are married with kids. So it was a pet project for them. Something that they've always wanted to do. Dan and Rachel, I've known them for years, and we'd see each other at these Asian gatherings, and we always talked about working together, and it like finally happened like 7-10 years later.
That's cool.
A nice full circle moment. Also, the premiere was like we had premieres in LA, Malaysia, Taiwan, Singapore, and it just gave me an excuse to go back there, and I had the best time. Like we were talking. And I need to go back to Asia.
I know. I'm getting all your notes right now because I'm going to hit that spot too. Tell me a little bit about the character and the premise of the show, and also what this show means, not just for Tubi. Again, you're opening doors for kids that are growing up that won't have the same experiences that we did.
Well, premise of the show, again, anthology of different relationships. My storyline is probably the heaviest one. We're a married couple dealing with a miscarriage.
Wow,
So
that's deep.
I say I did a rom-com, but I did not. I was in a very dramatic role. That it's kind of the spine of the story, but it does balance it out. But I think the important part for representation is, just normalizing this. We don't want this to be a flash in the pan or like an anomaly. We want other projects to be able to be greenlit because, I think we broke several records for Tubi, which is nice. It was very successful in terms of what we were trying to do, but we need more like it. We need different, styles of movies that can all do well, and I think growing up watching all of these great Asian film festival movies, unfortunately, like they all kind of fall into that indie drama film festival circuit movie type of thing, and and it never gets a broader release. So it was very exciting to be part of something that is a little bit more accessible to people outside of our culture, outside of that shared experience that we all have, and that's kind of my focus on the producing side now. Is that I want to create movies featuring Asians that are accessible to worldwide audiences.
And, for people who still don't understand, we talk about the importance of having projects like this. Can you just tell people like why this is important? I saw Mickey Rooney, who's like a doughy white older man, play an Asian guy, which was offensive and so problematic on so many levels. And that's not any disrespect to Mickey Rooney's character and his talent, character meaning his character in real life. That actually hurt how I saw myself. It imprinted on me because Asians were the butt of the joke, right? So now having a show like yours, Worth the Wait, with you, with Lana, with Andrew, with Ross Butler, you don't have thick Coke glasses. You're not the joke. You guys are just this gorgeous contemporary young group of people. Like, that is so amazing because I'm literally watching you guys do your thing, and all of these other projects that are coming out thanks to Randall Park and you, and it's just this huge push, and everyone behind the scenes, because you guys are fighting for a spot at the table and you're getting those opportunities, and you're, Osric in particular, this fearless, like somewhat kamikaze actor talent that's like, fuck yeah, I'm going to go and do it.
Debatable, but yes.
Because of that, you are literally changing the narrative for young kids that are watching this. What does that feel like to you? What does it mean to you? And what have you heard now that the show is out?
Well, I think the coolest thing about this movie is that the fact that we're Asian doesn't really matter. Like, yes, there's a cultural flair to it, but at the end of the day, like, they're just people going through relationships that anyone could and have gone through. So, like, the biggest feedback, certainly with my character, are, like, people that have gone through a miscarriage don't usually talk about it, and they don't know how to express any feelings towards it because it's so, it's so messy, it's so hard to articulate, and people don't. And so, like, I've had a lot of grown men's like, hey, that was the first thing that really made sense of that experience for me. I think representation as a whole, like, that's what it is. When we watch narratives, when we watch these movies, TV shows, whatever, we, project ourselves onto these characters. And there are certain characters that feel a lot like how we would act if we were in that situation. And
Right.
all we get are those, Mickey Rooney characters. Like, we start to internalize that, and then you create this idea in your head, even if it's not at all true, you kind of make it true.
Yeah.
Or you have the confidence of someone that would do that. And, the idea that everyone else is probably thinking that because that's all they have to see as well. To me, that's soft power, right? Like, you go to Asia 10 years ago, I remember my first time in the Philippines. The most incredible singers that I've ever seen in this world only doing cover songs of American songs. And it's because the Western influence was so strong that they didn't celebrate their own culture. I think it's changing now because of a lot of reasons. But, being able to celebrate your own culture and for it to be cool allows other people to be like, oh, it's okay to celebrate our culture. There are studies on just attractiveness. Like, what is attractive? It's different for different people. At the end of the day, it comes down to familiarity. The faces you see more and more often become attractive to you. That's it. So if you're seeing more things of a certain thing, that becomes attractive to you. And if you're seeing less of it, it doesn't. It's as simple as that. And so our fight for representation is fighting for that real estate in people's heads, whether it be our faces, whether it be our culture. We want this to be normalized. Like, we don't need to be the most attractive thing to everyone. We just don't want to be like oh, what is that?
Yeah. Again, I give you and, a lot of the people that I've met a lot of credit for helping me sort of celebrate that and recognize that. Let's go to your other project.
So it's called Holidays. It is Hallmark's first Christmas series ever. And it is so unlike any Hallmark thing that I've come across before. I play a businessman who's about to be engaged to a South Asian fiance man that, and I'm trying to figure out how to come out to my grandmother. And, like, I'm one of the lead characters. So it was one of those
Awesome.
things where I was so shocked to hear that it was Hallmark. I'm like, wait, this is like an interracial LGBTQ coming out story. I'm like, that's crazy for Hallmark. Our showrunner was fantastic. We had Gina Matthews, who ended up directing our episode as well. But she comes from, like, big studio rom-com world. Like, she did Isn't It Romantic, 13
wow.
Going on 30, Freaky Friday. Like, she's like
Oh, wow.
massive, right? So much experience. She's coming in, does her first Hallmark thing, and just knocks it out of the park. It's a series that I think we have 8 episodes, 6 families that all live in the same cul-de-sac, and it's just the days leading up to Christmas, and crazy things happen. The first and last episode, all the families are involved, and then every family gets their own episode. So it was a really ambitious but very fun project that, like, looks very theatrical.
Why was it important for you to take on this role?
It was really cool because Hallmark is one of those machines that, like, they've done so well for themselves. They have such a, fervent fan base.
Yeah.
But they rarely ever get to see any kind of diversity for Asians, for LGBTQ, for interracial couples. Like, there's so many things that we were a first for them. And so that was really cool to just knowing that this is going to a very specific and massive audience that just don't ever get to see these kinds of faces or stories.
Yeah, and I'll take that one step further. There is still a stigmatization in the Asian community about being gay.
Mm-hmm.
Look, the LGBTQIA community is under scrutiny and attack. And this is obviously not a political conversation, but no matter which quote unquote side you're on, there's no denial that the LGBTQIA is under attack. In the Asian community, it's not that it's been under attack per se, but it is a stigma that is still struggling. Like, it has gotten better, but there's still a lot of work that needs to be done here.
Asians have, we're probably guilty of so much stuff that we complain about. And a lot of it comes down to the fact that we have a hard time communicating with each other, whether it be intergenerational or otherwise. Like, there's so much that just feels taboo. They're like, are we going to get in trouble if we discuss it? And so we don't know how a lot of people think about these things. And we make a lot of assumptions. And that's what our storyline is about, is we're making assumptions as to what Granny might think. While most of the time, or some of the time, you're right, there are also times where people can surprise you. And
that's
making assumptions, even if, if it's half the time, you're still assuming that 100% of the time and you're going to act accordingly. It's important to just open up those channels of dialogue and just to talk things through. And it's super uncomfortable sometimes, but you'll never get to that place of rest unless you do that, unfortunately.
In your first conversation with me on the show, and certainly as I've gotten to know you a little bit, you're really unafraid of taking things on. And I think you said that you like to be a leader. You're not waiting for the change. You're working to be the change. Yeah. And you're doing it. And I think in this particular case, both with Worth the Wait and also with Holidays, you are being a part of this machine that's trying to move the needle forward in terms of changing perspectives, not just for the Asian community, but also on a global scale, like what other ethnicities may think of Asians. But I want to also point out, when you're doing this, but you've also found a community of people that are doing the same thing. Mm-hmm. You're establishing and growing a community that we may not have had when we were starting our careers, because there was a scarcity mindset, right? There's much more of a community feeling now. What's it like for you to be a part of this community and to help grow it? I'll give a quick behind the scenes anecdote that this is true, not only with, your production work with Worth the Wait, community people, like Lana, like Andrew, like Ross, like all the people behind the scenes, like the EPs, with Holidays. But behind the scenes, you're very involved. There's a huge Asian creative community in Vancouver. Go back to the idea of community and what it feels like to have one.
Well, going back to the, when we were fighting for roles, when there was such a scarcity of projects going around, it was a certain feeling of if someone got it, that means that I didn't get it. Right.
Right.
I think the biggest change is now that everyone's a friend, we can celebrate these things instead of thinking of what did I miss out on? It's no, they were the best person for that role. I'm so happy for my friend. It's just positive instead of negative. Part of that change is that, there's a feeling that there's enough to go around. Or for me, I'm not even thinking in those terms. I'm thinking if there are more prominent figures in our community, that will mean more project. That will mean if there's another big star, that means that they're going to have family members and they're going to have Asian stories that will require more actors. If I ever come across anyone that is writing or producing or directing or wants to, I will always take the time to have that conversation. Okay, what are you doing? What do you need help with? Because the more stories that are written, that are made, it's just creating jobs. And so I see that as there's just a lot more people to talk to, a lot more people to uplift. And, while I'm not afraid to be a leader, I don't need to be a leader, but I'm not afraid to initiate things. And there's Malcolm Gladwell had this book called The Tipping Point. And I always remember this book because at a certain point, mass adoption happens. Like you reach that tipping point and then everyone clambers in. And that's when it's easy. The first part,
Yes.
you need all these connectors, you need these people. Like I will always put myself in that early adopters group because I'm like, okay, this is the hardest part, right? But you need people to do this. And so for me, I'm like, okay, if I want to enact any kind of change, I need to be one of those people. If I truly believe in it, then all I need to do is convince a couple of other people that I think would also truly believe in it, who might have that influence. And then, before you know it, they'll tell three people, and then you hit that mass adoption. And I see that same like framework for a project. It is so hard to start anything up.
Yeah.
But if you start it up and you start asking people if they want to be a part of it, you'll find that they also have a hard time starting anything up. But just saying yes, like, oh, you've already done the work, should I jump on it? Yeah. People just tend to say yes. And before you know it, you're rolling the snowball down the hill and it's pretty sizable already. And then you have some momentum. People find it really hard to initiate, but it's really easy and kind of exciting to jump on someone else's project. So with that in mind, I'm like, okay, I will always start as many projects as I can and get it to that level, because I just know that, like, even for me, like, it's easier to jump on someone else's project than to start it myself. I'm just not afraid to start it if there's nothing happening. I encourage people to not wait for that, jump on if it presents itself, but be that person that starts it up too.
Yeah, but again, I will say this is a testament to who you are, because there's a lot of people, and this is not ethnic specific or culturally specific, but there are a lot of people who are gripping that need to be in control so tightly, be it driven by ambition or ego or whatever else, is selfishly motivating them.
That is true. And that is a big reason why you come across a lot of sets where, like, why are they in charge? Why is this happening? And it's because they're the only types of people normally that will do that work to start a project.
Right.
So I'm saying to all the people who don't have that confidence, who think that they're not ready, it might not matter. And I would prefer you in charge than a lot of the people that have gotten there.
I will say this, backtracking to when we were still not quite at this point where, hey, we're friends, how can we help each other? Before we got to this sort of cultural shift in thinking, there were a lot of people that were like gripped by the scarcity mindset. And they were gripped so tightly that they were unwilling to lead with grace and to give other people a hand up. And this is a nuanced kind of thing, because you fought for the opportunities and you got them, Osric, but also because of who you are as a person, you were willing to say, I'm going to turn around and be those connective tissues and give other people a hand up. It could have been very different if someone not like you, with the opposite set of values or lack thereof, if they became the person leading, I think we would have been down a very different path.
Yeah, I would also argue that were I different or someone else without these values, I would not have gone as far, because I do credit the community for a lot of the success that I've had. No one goes through this industry by themselves, right?
Yes.
And sometimes it's luck, sometimes it's everyone's just pulling their weight, and some people just hit a momentum and then they carry it through correctly. I am definitely one of those people that have benefited off of the support of the community, so I'm always trying to give back. It's a reciprocal relationship. And I will say, like, I have not always been this way. I remember the feelings of people who are now my friends that I've seen in the audition. I'm like, oh, they're there. Like, I remember those feelings, and it's like a foreign person. I'm like, that's my friend. Why would I think that? There was a moment that I'll share. This was years ago, but there was a massive role. I know it was between me and someone else. And I got offered the role. And I had this thought that at a certain point, they're going to find out and they're going to hate me. It was just an assumption, but I'm like, they're going to hate me. And I'm like, I don't want that. I didn't know
Right.
why I didn't want that, but like specifically that person who is now a friend, I'm like, I didn't want that. And so I had a platform and I started this thing called Asian American Spotlight. I just started a YouTube channel where every week I would kind of study a new Asian person, artist, whatever. And I kind of talked about these videos and I did it for over a year. That project never ended up going through, so it didn't matter. But what happened was I kind of reprogrammed my brain to just really enjoy Asian content and artists and stuff. Because like at the beginning, it was kind of homework. I'm like, oh, I just have to learn about like some other Asian artists and like support them. But then by the end of it, I was like excited. I'm like, who else is coming up? Who else is doing something cool? It really was like a rewiring of my brain in terms of like, no, I really want to support these people. And at the beginning, I was just kind of doing it out of guilt. I
Right.
want to lift him up because I don't want him to hate me, and
Right.
by the end of it, I was just like, man, like I feel really good about supporting my own.
Listen, thank you for coming back again. I need you back again in the future. But for now, Osric, will you let me know who you are and what you encourage others to represent?
Okay, hi, my name is Osric Chau, and I encourage others to represent that crazy person that they think is crazy for doing that thing that they're like, oh, maybe I shouldn't do this, but they know deep in their hearts that they should just go and do that thing. Whatever it might be, it is so scary. But I also represent the side of them that will figure it out and everything will be fine.
Osric is just this really talented, hardworking guy. And you know how he said he'll always make time to support others and gives back? I could tell you it's 100% true because he's done that for me many times. So, Osric, thank you so much for coming back on the podcast, for all of your time, and for always sharing your thoughts and these great perspectives that you have. If you want to know more about Osric, I'm going to have his social links in the episode description for you, so you can just click and follow. And I want to remind you guys, too, you can watch this conversation, like the whole thing, and you'll also find many other episodes that you can watch in full. So check it out. My YouTube handle is Reppin Podcast. Not very original, but it does work. And you can talk with me on Instagram at Reppin_podcast. Download, share, subscribe, do all the things that trendy people do with podcasts. To you listeners, I never take your time for granted. Thank you always for your support. Reppin is a Suburban Outlaw Productions. I'm Evelyn. Until next time, stand up and represent.
Rough and rugged.
Represent.